Alrighty, folks, we are now hitting at 81% in my last 29 chairman package picks on my premium site. And the good news is, I have another chairman package pick going off here this evening. And if you sign up for my full access, all-inclusive chairman package, you're going to get access to every single premium selection of mine, every single package, every single day for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, you're also going to get access to my Chairman podcast absolutely free. It's going to be included with your purchase. The math works out to be just $3.33 a day. And you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on the free video and what I do on my premium site. Well, what I do here on the free video is I'll handicap the entire slate of games at any given sport, side and total. And what I do on my premium site is, well, actually share with you which one of these free plays I actually like the best. I'm 3-0 my last 3 extra daily picks, 2-0 my last couple of NBA tier package plays, and finally, folks, once again, I'm hitting at 81% in my last 29 chairman package picks on my premium site. And the good news is we have plays going off in all of those packages here today. The site is patreon.com/BrockPage. And with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and dive into some free content. Our first matchup here is the Jazz at the Celtics. That's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Boston is -14 at the TD Garden. Totals 239.5. And for a team laying 14 points in this spot here, the Celtics have struggled against the number. Wow. Off to a hot start. The Celtics, they've struggled against the number here recently. They failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. Failures to cover against the likes of OKC, Toronto, and Detroit. And even though there's not a ton to nitpick when it comes to this Boston team, they do actually have problems guarding the three-pointer defensively. They're allowing nearly 15 made three-pointers a game. That puts them in the bottom 5 in the entire association in that particular category. And unfortunately for Boston, the Jazz do a nice job shooting from beyond the arc. Utah is currently in the top 10 in the NBA in three-pointers made per game. The Red Hot Jazz also got the W in 6 out of their last 7. They successfully covered the point spread in all but one of those contests. Now, injury-wise, Al Horford's questionable for the Celtics. Keep an eye on him. And when it comes to the total, Boston's 6-2 to the over against Western Conference opponents this year. Meanwhile, Utah has gone 70% to the over against their out-of-conference opponents themselves. Give me the Jazz plus 14, over 239.5. Next ball game, Hawks, Pacers, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Indiana's the 3-point favorite, totals 262.5. Now, the Red Hot Pacers are on a 5-game winning streak. They actually averaged 129 points a game during that stretch. And of course, for those who don't already know, the Pacers are the highest scoring team in the NBA right now. Tyrese Halliburton leads the roster in points per game. He's also shooting 40% from three-land. Meanwhile, Aaron Nesmith knocks down nearly 48% of his long balls himself. They're taking on a Hawks team who doesn't defend the field goal all too well themselves. They're letting their opponents make 50% of their attempts from the field against them. That's going to put them in the bottom 3 in that particular category. And for some reason, the Hawks allow the majority of their points late in games. They're giving up more fourth quarter points per contest than any other team in the NBA except for one. And out of Atlanta's last 9 ball games, they failed to cover in all of those contests besides 2. Now, injury-wise, Hunter, Krejci, and Goye are still out for Atlanta. Brown and Nembhard day-to-day for Indy. When it comes to the total, the Pacers are 13-4 to the over at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And out of Atlanta's last 9 ball games I just mentioned, the over cashed in 6 of those matchups. Give me the Pacers -3, over 262.5. Next matchup, Knicks, Sixers, 7:30 p.m. East. Philadelphia's -6 at home, totals 230. Now, the Sixers got the W in 7 out of their last 10. Very dominant this year at the Wells Fargo Center. Philadelphia is 13-4 in front of their own crowd. And they covered the point spread in 76% of those home games. And of course, a lot of that is thanks to the league's leading scorer, Joel Embiid. He's averaging a league-best 34.8 points a night, 54% shooting from the field as well for Embiid. Meanwhile, Tyrese Maxey's drilling nearly 40% of his attempts from downtown. He's second on the roster in scoring. Now they're taking on a Knicks club who plays their worst basketball away from MSG. They've currently got a losing road record, and they've done a poor job of shooting the three ball. These guys are currently in the bottom 10 in the NBA in offensive field goal percentage. And their second leading scorer, Julius Randle, he's making just 28% of his attempts from beyond the arc. Very little threat shooting the deep ball. Now, injury-wise, Flynn is questionable for New York. DeAnthony Melton's out for Philly. The Sixers are 11-6 to the over in the Wells Fargo Center. Meanwhile, the Knicks have gone 60% to the over in their road trips. Give me Philadelphia -6 over 230. Next game, Thunder Nets, 7:30 p.m. East. OKC's -5.5, totals 234 and a hook. Now, I do like OKC in this spot here, really beating up on the Eastern Conference this year. Out of 11 out-of-conference matchups, OKC won all of them except for 2. And even though a lot of the focus is on their offensive production, don't forget, this is one of the toughest teams in the NBA to shoot against. They have the lowest defensive field goal percentage in the entire association. They're also giving up fewer points a game on the road than any other team except for one. And of course, they're facing a Nets team who isn't overly prolific on offense. They're currently a bottom 5 field goal shooting team. And their leading scorer, Cam Thomas, he's making only 43% of his field goals. But if you think it's just offense I'm concerned about, well, the Nets do have some holes on D as well. It needs to be addressed. For one, they're one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the East. And number 2, well, Brooklyn simply can't guard beyond the perimeter. These guys allow more three-pointers a game than any other team besides one. Dennis Smith is questionable. Lonnie Walker could possibly return here tonight. Keep an eye on him. The Nets saw their last 4 straight all stay under the total. They've also gone 64% to the under against the Western Conference. Meanwhile, Oklahoma City saw unders recently against the likes of the Nuggets, Grizzlies, and these very Brooklyn Nets. Give me OKC -5.5, under 234 and a hook. All right, next game, Wizards, Cavaliers, 7:30 East. Cleveland's -11, totals 240. And for a team laying double digits in this spot here, the Cavs really haven't been impressive covering the number this year. They've covered in just 40% of their in-conference home games. When it comes to offensive play, the Cavs do struggle producing points late in games. Cleveland's currently a bottom 5 point-producing team in the fourth quarter. That back door is always open, especially for teams catching 11 points. And of course, the Wizards have little problem getting on the scoreboard. They are a top 10 point-producing team on the road. Kyle Kuzma leads the roster in scoring. Tyus Jones is drilling nearly 43% of his attempts from beyond the arc. Now to Washington's last 10 ball games, they covered the number in 60% of those contests. Now, injury-wise, Landry Shamet is questionable with a hammy. Meanwhile, for Cleveland, Jerome, Garland, and Mobley are still inactive. Ricky Rubio retired yesterday. The Cavs saw overs in 6 out of their last 9. Meanwhile, Washington has gone 67% to the over in their in-conference road games. Give me the Wizards +11 over 240. Next contest, Hornets, Bulls, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Chicago's the 9-point favorite, totals 222.5. And even though the Bulls are laying nearly double digits in this spot here, they haven't been great against the point spread over the past week or so. They failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4, and they're one of the worst offensive teams in the league. These guys are a bottom 3 field goal shooting team in the NBA right now, and no real surprise, the Bulls average fewer first quarter points than any other team in the association, really burying themselves early. And as bad as the Hornets have been, well, they've been able to cover the point spread during that shitstorm. They're 4-2 against the number in their last 6, and they're actually shooting it quite well in their travels. Charlotte's currently a top 10 field goal shooting team on the road. Brandon Miller's making 40% of his attempts from beyond the arc. Terry Rozier averages 24 points a game. Now, injury-wise, Hayward, Ntilikina, Ball, and Williams are still out for the Hornets. Meanwhile, for the Bulls, Vucevic, Levine, and Williams are questionable for them. When it comes to the total, the Bulls saw unders in their last 7 straight. They're also 10-3 to the under against the Eastern Conference at home. Meanwhile, Charlotte saw unders in 7 out of their last 10 themselves. Give me the Hornets +9, under 222.5. Next game, Clippers, Pelicans, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The LA Clippers are -1, totals 229. Now, the Red Hot Clippers won their last 4 straight, 8-2 on the money line in their last 10. And we are looking at a Clipper team who shoots it very efficiently. They're in the top 5 in shooting from the field. And when it comes to shooting from long range, well, these guys are in the top 3 in offensive three-point percentage. Kawhi Leonard's drilling 43% of his deep balls, team leader in scoring. Meanwhile, Paul George averages 23 points a game himself, and he's making 40% of his 3 balls. Now, they're facing a Pels team who does tend to break down defensively late in games. These guys are in the bottom 10 in second half points allowed. When it comes to offensive production, well, they kind of collapse late in games there too. They're a bottom 5 point producing team in the fourth quarter in the West, just not a team who finishes strong in the final 12 minutes. Now, injury-wise, Murphy and Robinson Earl are questionable for the Pels. Matt Ryan's still out. When it comes to the total, the Pelicans saw overs recently against the likes of Minnesota, the Lakers, and the Grizzlies. Meanwhile, the Clippers on the other side, they went 60% to the over in their last 10 themselves. Give me the Clippers -1, over 229. Next contest, T-Wolves, Rockets, 8 o'clock East. Minnesota's the 4-point favorite, totals 217.5. And even though this is a pretty short number, you still got to consider the fact that Minnesota's struggled covering the point spread recently. Out of their last 8 ball games, they failed to cover in all of those contests except for 1. And this is a team who's not winning their games by way of offense. They're a bottom 5 point producing team in the Western Conference. They're facing a Houston club who's incredibly tough to score against themselves. They're in the top 3 in the NBA in defensive points per game at home. And out of 19 contests in the Toyota Center, the Rockets got the W 14 times. Now, injury-wise, Dylan Brooks is still out. Tari Eason's questionable. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, Luka Garza's day-to-day. Jalen Clark's been scratched. Now, total-wise, Minnesota saw 3 out of their last 4 stay under the number. Unders against the likes of the Knicks, Lakers, and Mavericks. Meanwhile, Houston's gone 10-3 to the under in their in-conference home games. Give me Houston +4, under 217.5. Next game, Blazers, Mavericks, 8:30 p.m. East. Dallas is -10.5, totals 238. And for a big number here, the Mavs have certainly struggled covering at home. They've got a losing record against the point spread in their own building. When it comes to defensive play, the Mavs have certainly had their problems slowing down their competition. These guys are in the bottom 10 in points allowed. And even though Portland's not great at rebounding, it's the Mavs who are actually a bottom 3 defensive rebounding team themselves. And as bad as the Blazers have been, well, they do still have a winning record against the point spread on the road. And speaking of those road games, The Blazers have played competitively on the defensive end of the court. They've been the toughest team to shoot three-pointers against on the road in the league. They've got the lowest defensive three-point percentage in the NBA in their travels. Now, injury-wise, Ayton and Brown are out. Walker's questionable. Meanwhile, for Dallas, Exum and Holmes, they've been downgraded to doubtful themselves. Williams and Lively are day-to-day as well. 7 out of Dallas's last 9 ball games fell under the number. Meanwhile, Portland went 6-3 to the under in their last 9 themselves. Give me the Blazers plus 10.5, under 238. Next game, Heat Suns, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Phoenix is -4, totals 229.5. Now, the Suns are having a tough time guarding the three-pointer on their own court this year. They're in the bottom 5 in the West in defensive three-point percentage at home. And out of their last 10 ball games, the Suns successfully covered in just 20% of those contests. Now, they're facing a Heat team who plays incredibly tough defense on the road. They're giving up fewer points a game on the road than any other team in the league. Meanwhile, on the offensive end, well, these guys have certainly had the hot hand from long range. They've got the second highest three-point percentage in the entire NBA. Tyler Hero's drilling 42% of his deep balls, club leader in scoring. Meanwhile, Bam Adebayo averages over 21.5 points a night himself, along with double-digit rebounds. Now, injury-wise, Butler and Highsmith are out. Martin's doubtful. Meanwhile, for the Suns, Durant, Gordon, and Little are questionable. Damian Lee still out. 6 out of the Suns' last 9 ball games fell under the total. Meanwhile, Miami went 6-1 to the under in their West Coast road trips. Give me the Heat +4, under 229.5. Next game, Magic Nuggets, 9 o'clock East. Denver's -10, totals 225. And for a team laying double digits in this spot here, the Nuggets have certainly had some trouble covering the point spread recently. They failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6, and they've got a losing record against the point spread overall for the year. And even though there's not a ton to nitpick about when it comes to Denver, they're not as automatic shooting the basketball as you may think. They're in the bottom 10 in three-pointers made per game. Meanwhile, at the stripe, Denver's a bottom 3 free throw shooting team. Really not efficient from the foul line. And I'll tell you, they're taking on an Orlando team who's going to play you tough defensively. Orlando's a top 5 defensive rebounding team in the league. They're also in the top 5 in the East in fewest points allowed per game. Paolo Banchero's got a handful of steals on the season, 7 rebounds a night. When it comes to offensive production, Banchero's also the team's leading scorer. Now, Cole Anthony's averaging over 14 points a game off the bench. And when it comes to the injury list, Ingles, Harris, Isaac Fultz, and Franz Wagner, they are out. Wendell Carter's questionable. When it comes to the total, Orlando saw 7 out of their last 11 out-of-conference ball games stay under the line. Meanwhile, Denver's currently 11-6 the under inside the ball arena. Give me Orlando +10, under 225. Next matchup, Pistons, Warriors, 10 o'clock East. Golden State's -9.5, totals 239. And even though I'm not a huge fan of this number for Golden State, they have done a nice job of covering here recently. They're 7-3 against the number in their last 10. And they're making a bunch of three-pointers on offense. Golden State's making 15 three-pointers a game. They're in the top 5 in the NBA in that particular category. And even if they miss it, the Warriors do tend to get it right back. These guys are in the top 3 in offensive boards per game. They're facing a Detroit squad who lost 13 of 14 on the road this year. And no real surprise, they're also in the bottom 3 in defensive points per game while traveling. Alec Burks is questionable for the Pistons. Morris and Stewart are still out. Meanwhile, Detroit saw their last 4 out-of-conference road games get over the line. Golden State is 12-7 to the over in the Chase Center. Give me the Warriors -9.5, over 239. Next contest, Grizzlies, Lakers, 10 o'clock East. The Lakers are the 4-point favorite at home. Totals 227. And as sloppy as the Lakers have been here recently, I do think they bounce back in this spot here. They play their best basketball in Los Angeles. They're currently 12-5 straight up in front of their own crowd. And they're also playing some pretty tough defense in their own building. They're currently in the top 3 in defensive points per game at home. Of course, they're facing a Memphis club who continues to shoot poorly. The Grizzlies are currently dead last in shooting from the field. No real surprise here. They've got the lowest offensive three-point percentage in the entire NBA. Leading scorer John Morant makes only 25% of his three-pointers. Jaren Jackson's shooting just 33% from beyond the arc himself. When it comes to the injury list, Vince Williams is questionable for Memphis. Clark and Rose are still out. Meanwhile, for the Lakers, Hachimura's out. Russell's doubtful. 12 out of LA's 17 home contests this year fell under the total. Meanwhile, Memphis saw their last 4 straight all stay under the line themselves. Give me the Lakers -4 under 227. And with that, folks, we are going to jump into our next and final matchup for the video. It's going to be in the Raptors-Kings game, 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Sacramento is -4.5, totals 238 and a hook. Now, the Kings are 12-6 straight up in the Golden One Center, top 5 in the West in home scoring. De'Aaron Fox averages a team-high 29 points per contest. Malik Monk makes 42% of his three-pointers. They're taking on a Toronto team who plays their worst basketball while traveling. These guys are currently 5-11 in their road trips, and they've played some sloppy defense in the process. Toronto's in the bottom 5 in the East in defensive field goal percentage on the road. And in their last 8 ball games, the Raptors got the W only 3 times. Christian Coloco's still out. Otto Porter's doubtful. When it comes to the total, Toronto saw overs in 5 out of their last 8. I actually just mentioned those games. Meanwhile, Sacramento is 5-1 to the over against the Eastern Conference at home. Give me the Kings -4.5 over 238 and a hook. And with that, folks, now it is time for our quick pick recap. Give me the Jazz +14 over 238. Let's try that again. Give me the Jazz +14 over 239 and a half. Pacers -3 over 262 and a hook. Sixers -6 over 230. And if you want to see which one of these free plays on this video that I actually like the best, just a friendly reminder, I'm hitting at 81% in my last 29 Chairman Package picks on my premium page. And if you sign up for that full access, all-inclusive package here today, it's not just a one-day pass. You're going to get access to that membership every single day for the next 30 days. The math works out to be just $3.33 a day. I also have packages even cheaper than that. The link for my premium site is in my bio. Give me OKC -5.5 under 234 and a hook. Wizards +11 over 240. Hornets +9 under 222 and a half. Clippers -1 over 229. Rockets +4 under 217 and a half. Blazers +10 and a half under 238. Miami Heat +4 under 229 and a half. Magic +10 under 225. Golden State Warriors -9.5 over 239. Lakers -4 under 227. With my next and final free pick for the video, give me the Kings -4.5 over 238 and a hook.